Welcome back to my channel. Today, we'll be discussing Intense by Kyungha. Now before we get started, there will be spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled on this manhwa, go ahead and click off now. No worries, I'll catch you next time. Now for those of you left behind, let's go over some content warnings. There may be references to rape, possible pedophilia, ableism, specifically use of the R slur, suicide, faking a disability, prostitution, dubious consent, codependency, animal abuse, animal death, child abuse, child neglect, child abandonment, homophobia, domestic violence, mafia and gang activity, drugs, blood, and violence, as these things do appear in the manhwa. Now, if none of that's going to bother you, let's go ahead and get started. Now, as always, let's start with a quick synopsis. Jiwoon Kang is nothing more than collateral. After his father, in debt to a large criminal organization, kills himself, the boss, Yoonshik, takes Jiwoon on as collateral. The boss trains him up so Jiwoon can someday work off the debt. In the meantime, Jiwoon learns to kill and becomes Yoonshik's right-hand man. In an open secret, Jiwoon also plays the cooperative, though the unenthusiastic role of Yoonshik's lover. When Yoonshik is sent to prison, Jiwoon is hidden in the red light district, where he protects the working girls. There, he meets Soo-han Lee. Soo-han Lee is mute. He just happened upon the red light district years ago, and ever since has taken up residence there, doing odd jobs for a little bit of cash and a roof over his head. His life is rather mundane, even in the bustling streets. That is, until he meets Jiwoon. After getting beaten up while defending a working girl from a customer, Jiwoon comes upon Soo-han bloodied up on the ground. Despite their odd circumstances, Jiwoon is compelled to kiss Soo-han, which he does. This sends them down a dangerous path fraught with jealousy, violence, crime, and more. But in the end, will it be worth the struggle? Now let me go ahead and get my biases out of the way now. This is one of my favorite manhwa of all time, and it's one of the first manhwa I actually ever owned a physical copy of, and maybe that I even read back before I knew what manhwa even was. With all that being said, I have to admit that the art style isn't my favorite. It's very rough and sketchy, but I think it fits the narrative's dark, solemn, and gritty content. It reminds me of traditional American style comics, which I'm also not a fan of. Still, the story makes up for the art, whether you enjoy the artwork or not. Now, while the art style isn't one of my favorites, where this really shines is in the narrative. It's painfully dark and solemn, with two broken people finding happiness with each other. That seems to be a common trope I instantly fall in love with. See my review of My Way With You as an example. Just as the name suggests, this is intense in several ways. The feelings Jiwoon has for Soo-han and vice versa, the intensity with which Yoonshik obsesses over Jiwoon, and the intensity of neglect and pain they've experienced throughout their short lives. Amid all this intensity are two lost souls, quiet shadows that most people pay no mind to. Then, just as the intensity is building, they disappear into the night and out into domestic normalcy, which in its bliss builds its own intensity. It's a swift turn of events that will leave you breathless, to say the least. While the narrative is excellent and they find happiness with each other, my favorite part is actually after they start building a life together. Most of these works where it's the two broken people trope usually end up with them living happily ever after together. Intense goes for a much more realistic depiction of their lives. These two people aren't suddenly healed from their trauma just because they have each other. They both still struggle with their fears, and they are sometimes toxic to each other. That realism grounds their love in reality, and I love it. There's no guarantee that they'll ever be happy together, but they have hope, which makes the ending all the more satisfying. Now, this isn't perfect by any means. I've given it a ton of praise, but admittedly I am a bit biased since this was one of the first manhwa I ever read, and probably one of the earliest BL for me too. The strongest element for me, the domestic life together after escaping the gang, wasn't very long. I would have liked to have seen more moments of them trying to figure out life together. There's a few small humorous scenes between Jiwoon and Soo-han, which showed glimmers of a possibly brighter future. I would have enjoyed more of those fluffy moments just to give the relationship more depth beyond the physical attraction. With all that being said, this is dark, toxic, and painful, but it all comes together in a beautiful brew of hope. I wouldn't recommend this to everyone as the themes are explicit and rather grotesque at times, with a display of suicide, abuse, and the like. However, if you can stomach such things, this is great. It's existential for sure, and it'll have you thinking of it long after it's ended. It'll also have you craving more, but it is worth it, I promise. So, have you read Intense? If so, what do you think? Do you agree with my assessment? Do you not? Let me know and comment below. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time. Bye!